Ryan had always trusted his father, Arnold, a successful businessman with a reputation that spanned years of hard work and dedication. But as he stood in the cold, silent church, preparing to say goodbye, something felt wrong. The commotion started suddenly when his dog, Bella, bolted through the door, barking uncontrollably and charging straight towards his father's casket. Her frantic behavior made Ryan's heart race. The church fell quiet as Bella continued to bark and paw at the casket, her voice growing more desperate with every passing second. Ryan's eyes narrowed, a growing sense of unease settling in his gut. Something wasn't right. He opened the casket to calm his dog, but what he found stunned him. Arnold's body was gone. There was no mistaking it. His father, the man they had gathered to mourn, had somehow vanished. We couldn't even give Dad a proper funeral, Ryan thought bitterly as his mother fainted, overwhelmed by the shock. The confusion in the air was palpable, but Ryan's instincts told him this was more than just a bizarre incident. He had to find answers. After getting his mother medical attention at the hospital, Ryan immediately called the police, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something much darker. Detective Bradshaw's investigation. Detective Bradshaw arrived shortly after, and although he was methodical in his approach, the investigation seemed to hit one dead end after another. There were no witnesses, no signs of foul play, just the unexplained disappearance of Arnold's body. Bradshaw's suspicions grew as the case went cold, but he refused to let it rest. Ryan, however, couldn't stand the lack of progress. Driven by mounting frustration and a deep sense of betrayal, he decided to take matters into his own hands. Determined to find answers, Ryan made an unannounced visit to the morgue where his father's body had been stored. Upon arrival, he was met with an eerie silence. Something was amiss. As he approached the desk, he was told that Arnold's file was missing. Even more unsettling, the coroner had left the building abruptly and without explanation. Ryan's mind raced. Why would the coroner leave so suddenly, and why was his father's file gone? The more Ryan delved into the mystery, the more the pieces seemed to be vanishing. He was becoming increasingly convinced that something far more sinister was at play, and his father's death or supposed death was the key to unlocking it all. The shocking revelation. Just as Ryan was beginning to lose hope, he received a call that would change everything. It was from his father's lawyer, Mr. Stevens. Ryan could barely believe what he heard. According to Stevens, Ryan was now the CEO of Arnold's company. But there was more. The company was in severe financial trouble, drowning in debt. The once thriving business that Arnold had built over decades was now on the verge of collapse. Ryan's heart sank as he considered the implications of this news. Why would Arnold, a man who had always seemed in control, leave behind such a mess? His suspicions were only deepened when he learned something even more startling. Miss Pearson, Arnold's longtime secretary, was the sole beneficiary of a life insurance policy worth $7 million, a policy he had no idea existed. This was the break Ryan had been waiting for. The connection between his father's disappearance and Miss Pearson's sudden windfall seemed too coincidental to ignore. A disappearing secretary and a growing mystery. Ryan's instincts told him to pursue this lead, so he began quietly following Miss Pearson, trying to learn more about her motives. He trailed her through the city, trying to stay unnoticed, until she led him to an unexpected destination, an upscale, private auction house. It was there that Ryan learned of his father's obsession with rare figurines, a passion that had consumed him in his later years. Arnold had amassed a significant collection of rare and valuable pieces, and Ryan believed these figurines might be the key to understanding his father's disappearance. The auction house was filled with bidders eager to get their hands on the most coveted pieces. As Ryan scanned the room, he began to hatch a plan. If Arnold was alive, he thought, he might show up at the auction. So, Ryan put his theory into action. He decided to auction off one of the rare figurines, knowing it was the kind of piece that would attract his father's attention. As the auction began, Ryan's heart pounded. He knew this was his only shot at finding his father, and he was willing to take the risk. When the bidding reached $1 million, Ryan's pulse quickened. Then, a voice called out from the back of the room. $1 million, the voice shouted. Ryan froze. The voice was unmistakable. He turned, his eyes widening in shock as he saw Arnold standing there, wearing a hat to conceal his identity. The man he thought he had lost forever was alive. But the look in Arnold's eyes was not one of reconciliation or relief. Instead, it was filled with anger. "You tricked me," Arnold growled as he stood up, removing his hat in one swift motion. The room fell silent. Arnold's face, aged and weathered, had been hiding in plain sight. Before Ryan could react, security moved in to arrest Arnold. The truth came crashing down. Arnold had faked his death, staging his own funeral, in order to disappear and start over with Miss Pearson. She had been in on it all along, and together, they had planned to take the insurance payout and the company's assets for themselves. The betrayal and final confrontation. As Arnold was led away in handcuffs, his face twisted with frustration, Ryan couldn't help but feel the weight of the betrayal. A man should do what is right, not follow his selfish interests, Ryan reminded his father coldly. It was a truth Arnold could no longer deny. The greed, the lies, the manipulation, it all led to this moment of reckoning. Ryan was left to pick up the pieces of his father's shattered legacy. The company, now in ruins, would take years to recover if it ever did. But Ryan had learned a valuable lesson. He realized that his father, for all his success, had been driven by self-interest and an insatiable desire to escape the consequences of his actions. For a moment, Ryan was consumed with anger, but he quickly shook it off. This was his chance to rebuild, to reclaim what was rightfully his. It was also an opportunity for him to prove that integrity and hard work still mattered. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, but he was no longer alone in his fight. With the truth about his father's betrayal finally revealed, Ryan could now move forward, determined to lead the company with honor and restore its reputation. In the end, Ryan's pursuit of the truth had not only led to the exposure of his father's dark secrets, but it had also revealed his own strength. Despite the heartbreak, he knew that with each step, he was forging his own path, a path of redemption and